Hey, we're going to talk more about Oklahoma and South Carolina. We'll get more about South Carolina's defense versus Oklahoma's offense coming up, and we'll give you some keys and predictions later in the show. All this coming up on a Locked On crossover edition featuring Locked On Gamecocks and Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Gamecocks and Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Chris, you were talking about South Carolina and turnovers. They're tied for first in the SEC in turnovers per game alongside Texas, who did get 3 interceptions of John Mateer this past weekend. How do you feel like they're going to fare against Oklahoma's offense and John Mateer?
So I think that if Oklahoma decides to make this game a get-right game for the run game, I think that's a mistake. I think that trying to force the issue with a run game that's kind of struggled, I think they're like 13th in the SEC in rushing and stuff like that. I don't think that's the way to win. I think you have a really good quarterback. I don't think playing a game for 60 minutes against Texas's defense made him healthier, but I think that whatever percentage he's at, if he doesn't turn the ball over 3 times, that game on Saturday is probably a different story, and then the game this upcoming Saturday is probably also a little bit different story. So, but the other part with Mateer too is that that's kind of been his MO a lot this season. Is he's had turnovers, at least one, in a lot of games, right? Like I think like Auburn, he had one. I think he had one against Temple, and we've seen that kind of be a consistent thing. This Illinois is State. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them is when they get into the red zone, you're going to have to force the issue and make sure that's not where the mistakes happen. So I think like from a strength on strength standpoint, the weakest part of this defense is the interior defensive line because it's also the thinnest part of this defense. Really good group of backers, really good edge rushers. Maybe a way to negate that is you run right at Dylan Stewart. I don't know. But the secondary, it's got a lot of really good players, and I thought would be the strength of this team. They have shown some signs of weaknesses where you can get some big gains against them, and they're a little bit banged up as well. But I think this game is not something where you need to overthink it if you're Oklahoma and be like, you know what, we're going to really try to run between the tackles to prove to ourselves that we can do it against a team that's not super great at stopping it. I think you go out there and you do what's given you the best success, which is let Mateer be Mateer and have success in that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on there. The focal point should be that Oklahoma, as they get right, is to just go straight air raid and spread those bad boys out. Make them chase field. Make them do what Norris did last week, man. Run 800-something yards on just get like 19 yards total. Make them go everywhere they don't want to go. And I think that's kind of the focal point that Oklahoma should do. They kind of talked about it in the presser on Tuesday that, they're going to figure out some stuff with John and get him his confidence going like he should. And John's already owned it and said, I need to be better with my eyes. I need to do a better job of just finding open dudes. There were so many freaking plays where there was wide open guys against Texas and he just didn't see them. And this is the opportunity for him to settle down and do that. Plus, he should be able to run. I mean, he said that his thumb is fine. He said that he broke a scab and that's why he's bleeding and they had to wrap him up with another bandage. But we'll find out exactly how he feels. If he's feeling fine, then there's no excuse for him to not go out there and have a really, really good game against the secondary because, as you said, Chris, the edgers and the backers are really the biggest problem. And if he can find a way to make sure he steps up in the pocket, let them kind of go around and quickly get rid of the ball, the quick game will probably be the saving grace here. And then potentially him scrambling right up the middle. If the pocket opens up and spreads around him, shoot, just zip and go. But you're right. Yeah. This has been John Mateer's MO his whole career. He's a gunslinger, so he's going to throw it right to a defender every once in a while. The question is, can you catch it? Because it's a fast one. But if he looks and does a good job of dumping and paying attention and finding the open guy when he knows the guy's going to be open, he should be able to have a good redemption game. I think he does redeem himself similar to the Michigan game or even the Auburn game. But I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game and a close one.
So, Chris, you guys lost a lot of guys off the defensive side of the ball. We know about Dylan Stewart. What?
I don't want to talk about that.
Well, I'm going to talk about that because I want to know who else do we need to be looking out for? Like, who are some playmakers on that defensive side of the ball that Oklahoma fans need to be aware of?
So I'm I rave about this front seven a lot, and it's mainly the edge rushers and the linebackers, but the ones I personally love the most, like Stewart's great. JT Gear has been great. Brian Thomas Jr. has been really, really good as well. They've been really good at the edge rush position, especially getting just not always sacks, but like being able to put pressure on quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. They also do a pretty good job of collapsing pockets. You're not seeing a ton of guys run free from them. I think the linebacking core is a year away, but I'm so excited about them because they might not be as good as last year. You don't have a Demetrius Knight Jr. guy that's going to run 23 miles an hour, or I think it's 21 and a half, maybe miles an hour, probably that. Because a linebacker running 23 miles an hour would be insane. But a guy that's going to be a top 50 pick and all that kind of stuff. There's Fred Johnson, who has all the makings of being that type of player, 6'4", 245 type kid, former 4-star recruit. He's played well. Justin Okoronkwo, number 17. You will see him on Saturday. He will be shot out of a cannon. Former 3-star recruit from Germany, signed with Alabama. And I remember at the time I was still covering some parts of Alabama, and I remember talking to people on the staff with Saban, and they said, dude, if this guy was born in America, he'd be a 5-star recruit. And we all know the Bama bump, so of course he would have been a 5-star recruit. But he is now transferred over to South Carolina along with Sean Murphy, a guy who went to Bama and then Florida State. They're a solid group, and they're pretty good in run support. You just have to figure out a way to make whoever you're going up against a little bit more one-dimensional. The question has not been the defense. It has not been an issue with the defense. The defense they don't rank super high in the SEC in terms of like total yards allowed or yards per play. I think they're like 11th in yards per play at 5.16, and then I think 339 yards of offense per game. It's not astronomical numbers, right? But I will also tell you, they have got to figure out a way when they will force a turnover this weekend for sure. I would be shocked if Mateer in their first road game, like they haven't played a true road game yet, and I'm not going to count Temple. No offense, Temple. But
What's
coming to Williams-Brice Stadium, I will tell you this, guys: if you're traveling, the people outside of Williams-Brice will be a lot more accommodating and nicer than the ones that were in Philly for that Temple game. I can promise you that. But no, I think that they have to figure out a way. All of the question marks are on the offensive side of the ball because, again, last week you forced 3 turnovers against LSU, and some of those were like one of those was around midfield. You made 7 trips across the 50-yard line. You got 3 points. And how do you figure out a way to stop the bleeding when things go bad, and then also figure out a way to stop shooting yourself in the foot offensively and defensively?
We're going to get into some keys of the game. We'll drop some predictions coming up next here on Locked On Gamecocks and Locked On Sooners.